Good evening and welcome to our program this evening entitled Aroha, It's All Connected. And as we proceed with the program, you'll understand why it's called Aroha. This quote from General Omar Bradley speaks to me very clearly of where we find ourselves today. He is from World War II, and he said, "We are stumbling blindly through a spiritual darkness while toying with the precarious secrets of life and death. The world has achieved brilliance without wisdom, power without conscience. Ours is a world of nuclear giants and ethical infants. We know more about war than we know about peace, more about killing than living." And the United Nations has produced a book entitled Faith for Earth, A Call for Action, because they truly believe that what is missing in the whole debate about the environment and peace is the moral voice. And so this presentation seeks to look at what do all congregations, all traditions believe in? Okay? This is the world we're seeing today. And John Muir, the famous environmentalist, once said, "When one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it attached to the rest of the world. And we can no longer think that when something is happening in another place, it's not going to affect us, because it is and it will." This is the world we belong to. It's one planet. And if you remember when the astronauts were first going into outer space, Edgar Mitchell, I believe, was the one who turned around and said, all you see is this blue dot, and you realize that everything we love, all of us, everything that is important, it's on that blue dot, and it belongs to all of us. Okay? In the words of Brother Wayne Teasdale, he says, "We are rapidly entering the age of interspiritual community. This is a new axial period, and it will be characterized by the emergence of a profound sense of community among the world's religions and spiritual traditions." And if you attended the session Sunday for the Festival of Faiths, you could see that there truly was a profound sense there of people wanting to work together and bringing the beauty of their own traditions to the table. In this age, he says, we will gain access to the treasures hidden in the depths of our own and other traditions of spirituality. These resources have the power to transform our attitudes and behavior toward one another, other species, and the earth itself. And before I forget, I should have said this at the beginning. If you have any questions, if you put them in the chat, we'll answer them at the end. He says this will lead us into awareness of our larger communion with this sacred reality, because this sacred reality is home for all of us. Klaus Topfer was the first head of the UN Environment Program. And in 1999, he said, "We have entered a new age, an age where all of us will have to sign a new compact with our environment and enter into the larger community of all living beings. A new sense of our communion with planet Earth must enter our minds." So the critical question that we want to look at this evening is, what binds people of goodwill together? And I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that said, "God bless the whole world, no exceptions." And I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, "I really like your bumper sticker." So what is it that brings us together? And as I reflected on that and looked at various traditions, I realized that compassion is at the heart of all religious traditions. Compassion for one another and for all of creation. Thomas Merton wrote, "Compassion is the keen awareness of the interdependence of all things." And the Dalai Lama says, we can reject everything else. We can reject religion, ideology, all receive wisdom. but we cannot escape the necessity of love and compassion. He said, "This then is my true religion, my simple faith. Our own heart, our own mind is the temple. The doctrine is compassion." And at another time, he said, "It doesn't really matter what religion you are. If you live deeply out of your tradition and I live out of mine, we will come to a common understanding of what is good for all of us." And so we want to take a look at indigenous beliefs. And some of you who have heard me speak before know that I worked at the United Nations for 8 years and have mentioned that each year there is a 2-week conference called the Rights of the Indigenous. And at that conference are indigenous peoples. It's a permanent forum on the rights of the indigenous. And at that conference are indigenous peoples from throughout the world, from Madagascar, from Montenegro, from every corner of the earth. And they come in all of their wonderful, beautiful, colorful, traditional garbs. But they come with a tremendous amount of knowledge about how to care for the earth. And they say to us every single year, "You talk to us about the importance of caring for the environment. And we have been doing it for thousands of years. Talk to us." Because indigenous knowledge is a way of thinking applied to phenomena across biological, physical, cultural, and spiritual systems. It is a way of life. Indigenous teachings remind us that what we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. What we do to each other, we do to the earth. We'll have peace with the earth only when we have peace with each other. And we'll have peace with each other only when we have justice. The Haudenosaunee are those who we formerly called the Iroquois, and this is their message to the world. It says, "In the beginning, we were told that the human beings who walk about on the earth have been provided with all the things necessary for life. We were instructed to carry a love for one another and to show great respect for all the beings of this earth. We are shown that our life exists with the tree life, that our well-being depends on the well-being of the vegetable life, that we are close relatives of the four-legged creatures. In our ways, spiritual consciousness is the highest form of politics." Think about that. Spiritual consciousness is the highest form of politics. The Sami beliefs, I'm just going to choose a few tribes and share, because many of them share these same beliefs, maybe different words, but the concepts are the same. The Sami live up in the most northern regions of the world. "We live adoring nature, and then it becomes sacred. There is a necessity to please nature so that it gives to you. You have to be kind to nature so that nature will give you more. You have to be friends with the environment. Otherwise, it won't work in cooperation with you on whatever you call the spiritual." And the Akan people of Ghana say, "The aim of African religion is to promote harmony between humans, the spirit world, society, and the environment. Its distinctive feature is the sharing spirit. We believe that Earth is God's gift to us. We are merely the keepers of Earth and are charged with taking care of it and leaving it in a better condition than we found it." I just recently returned from working in Africa this summer, and there are multiple tribes. There's something like 42 tribes in Africa, in Kenya where I was, just Kenya alone. Each tribe with its own language, with its own customs, but all share a deep reverence for the earth and a real understanding of their connectedness with the earth. Zoroastrianism is the oldest of all the systems religions. Okay? It's 4,000 years old, so 2,000 years before Christianity and before Hinduism as well. And it says that the role of humankind in the world is to serve and honor not just the wise Lord, but the 7 bounteous creations of the sky, water, earth, plants, animals, humans, and fire, the gifts of God on high to humankind on earth. In helping to bring about a state of perfection in this world and in the seven creations, Zarathustra enjoined his followers to tread an ethical and righteous path, a path of compassion towards one another and the entire earth community. They see nature as not only having an intrinsic value, but it is also perceived as sacred. And all sacred things have a right to live and grow in our biosphere. The concern for nature is not just for plants and vegetations, but for all creatures. And Zoroastrians recite in their aphrons, I pray for the good of the life of all the living creatures, which Ahura Mazda, whom they call God, has created. The devout Zoroastrian regards the elements of nature with the most profound reverence. Earth, water, air, fire. In Hinduism, the viewpoint on nature has been clearly enunciated. The whole viewpoint of Hinduism is permeated by a reverence for life and an awareness that the great forces of nature, the earth, the sky, the air, the water, and fire, as well as various orders of life, including plants and trees, forests and animals, are all bound to each other within the great rhythms of nature. And the ancient Hindu dictum says, the earth is our mother, and we are all her children. The universe is immeasurably vast, but it comes from a single divine source. And the completed universe is imaged as a living organism, a vast ecosystem in which each part is inextricably related to the life of the whole. According to the Hindu Vedas, the path of action is as important as the path of knowledge. Gandhi said the only way to find God is to see him in his creation and be one with it. And I ask you right now to just think of your own religious traditions. And don't you also have dictums very similar to this one? The divine is not exterior to creation, but it expresses itself through natural phenomena. The Hindu tradition of reverence for nature and all forms of life, vegetable or animal, represents a powerful tradition which needs to be re-nurtured and reapplied in our contemporary context. The Jain religion is the most interesting one. Their ecological philosophy is virtually synonymous with the principle of ahimsa, which means nonviolence, and it runs through their entire tradition like a golden thread. They recognize the fundamental natural phenomenon of symbiosis or mutual dependence. They believe that all aspects of nature belong together and are bound in a physical as well as a metaphysical relationship. They view life as a gift of togetherness, accommodation, and assistance in a universe teeming with interdependent constituents. Notice how many times we are seeing that word interdependent in all of our religious traditions. Nonviolence, positively expressed, is reverence for life with love, compassion, and empathy for all living beings at every step of daily life. They believe that all the venerable ones of the past, present, and future discourse proclaim, propound, and describe thus in unison: do not injure, abuse, oppress, enslave, insult, torment, torture, or kill any creature or living being. Using any resource beyond one's needs and misuse of any part of nature is considered a form of theft. Indeed, the Jain faith goes one radical step further and declares unequivocally that waste and creating pollution are acts of violence. Think about that as a guiding principle in our own lives. waste, and creating pollution as acts of violence. They wear masks to fulfill their vows to never knowingly take the life of a sentient creature, no matter how small. I had the opportunity to visit a Jain museum when I was in India and learned a great deal about their absolute total conviction that they are part of nature and nature is part of them. And they do everything possible not to harm creation. The Sikh religion is the vision of Guru Nanak, and it's a world society comprising God-conscious human beings who have realized God. To these spiritual beings, the earth and the universe are sacred. All life is unity, and their mission is the spiritualization of all. The reality that humans create around themselves is a reflection of their inner state. Think about that for a moment as we look at the world around us. The reality that humans create around themselves is a reflection of their inner state. What does it say about our inner state when we see such phenomenal violence all around us? The current instability of the natural system of the earth, the external environment of humans, is only a reflection of the instability and pain within humans. The increasing barrenness of the earth's terrain is a reflection of the emptiness within humans. Think about that for a moment. The barrenness of the earth is a reflection of the emptiness within humans. The Sikh scripture declares that the purpose of human beings is to achieve a blissful state and be in harmony with all creation. A concern for the environment is part of an integrated approach to life and nature. As all creation has the same origin and end, humans must have consciousness of their place in creation and their relationship with the rest of creation. Becoming one and being in harmony with God implies that humans endeavor to live in harmony with all of God's creation. Notice again the word harmony that we see repeated, to learn to live in harmony with all of God's creation. Imagine if we can open ourselves up to listening to what these other traditions have to say and to working together that we all might live in harmony with God's creation. The Buddha said, fill your mind with compassion. Sunyata means the complete interrelatedness of all beings, and compassion flows from this intuition of interrelatedness. Buddhism is a religion of love, understanding, and compassion, and is committed to the ideal of nonviolence. It also attaches great importance to wildlife and the protection of the environment on which every being in this world depends for survival. They regard their survival as an undeniable right. As co-inhabitants of this planet, other species too have the right of survival. Let us share the conviction that conservation of the environment, the restoration of the imbalance caused by our negligence in the past, be implemented with courage and determination. In Thailand, the Buddhist monks there circle the trees with the orange cloth and ordain the trees as monks are ordained, so that the trees will also be privileged in their society. And I love this saying, the cosmos is a cooperative. The entire cosmos is a cooperative. The sun, moon, and stars live together as a cooperative. The same is true for humans and animals, trees, and the earth. When we can realize that the world is a mutual, interdependent, cooperative enterprise, then and only then can we build a noble environment. If our lives are not based on this truth, then we shall perish. Just reflect for a moment. on the fact that the cosmos is a cooperative. And in a cooperative, every entity has a role to play. The Quran says that Allah is compassionate and merciful. To follow Allah is to follow a way of compassion. Belief is not a theology of the head, it is of the heart. Unity, trusteeship, and accountability, the three central concepts of Islam, are also the pillars of the environmental ethics of Islam. They furnish us with a worldview which enables us to ask what we can do within the ethical boundaries established by God without violating the rights of his other creatures. The world is green and beautiful, and God has appointed you stewards over it, says Muhammad. The Quran lays down the foundations for the conduct of our affairs in creation. At one level, it is about conserving the body and soul and the making out of our relationships with the natural order. At another level, it is about the communities of beings that fly and crawl and lope and swim. And yet another level, it is about the cosmos, the elements, forest, mountains, and rivers. In 2019, the 8th Islamic Conference of Environmental Ministers approved a strategy to enhance the role of culture and religious factors in protecting the environment and achieving sustainable development in the Islamic world. The document which they published is 52 pages. I just finished reading it. It's Al-Mizan means the balance. It is a beautiful document expressing so clearly what Muslims are called to do in relation to the environment. But it also broadens it to working with other traditions, not just doing it themselves. So this document, entitled Al-Mizan, A Covenant for the Earth, aims to demonstrate how Islam can be a driving force for sustainable development and environmental care. In the Jewish scriptures, it says, God is a God of tenderness and compassion, slow to anger, rich in kindness and faithfulness. God's compassion is over all that he has made. And compassion is not about pity, but about justice and love. Judaism teaches that the whole world is God's house, and the wind is God's breath. It teaches that the meaning of goodness derives from the water and earth and all the creatures. It teaches that the earth is the ground of our being, and that how we live reverberates within it, that we are indelibly connected to the land. The preservation of our beautiful world is our greatest religious imperative. Elijah's Covenant is a similar document to Al-Mizan, a rabbinic call for action on climate justice, written in 2020, and it says, our sacred task requires affirming not only the biological ecosystem, but also a cultural, social ecosystem, a modern word for how the diverse images of God become echad, meaning one. Jews, indigenous nations, Christians, Muslims, Unitarians, Buddhists, Hindus, and many others. Each community must bring its own unique wisdom to join in the name of the one who is the interbreathing spirit of all life. Again, notice it's not just written for one tradition, it invites all. For Christians, the Hebrew Bible is part of their scripture, but ours also includes the New Testament. Therefore, selections from the Old Testament about creation also hold true for Christians, but also include the sayings of Jesus in the New Testament. So we're called to be compassionate as your Creator in heaven is compassionate. Jesus says, I was hungry and you gave me food. The central sacrament of Christianity makes God present in bread and wine, things of earth. And this reflects an understanding of all creation as sacraments, God's presence in the material world. And just as the Muslim book entitled Al-Mizan, in 2015, Pope Francis wrote an encyclical called Laudato Si. Now, an encyclical is generally a letter written by the Pope for the Catholic community. However, in this encyclical, which is on care for our common home, Pope Francis addresses it to every living person on the planet. Because again, as others, he realizes that this is not something any one tradition can do. It's written to every living being on the planet. It covers ecology, economics, politics, education, theology, and spirituality. Since it was published, a public perception of climate change as a moral issue has increased significantly, and more people have been motivated to take action. Now, as I was reading Al-Mizan, the Muslim document, I couldn't help but notice the parallels in what they were saying. The 10 green commandments of Laudato Si call for a reflection action process, which is see, judge, and then act. So what do we see? Earth, our common home, is in peril. Take care of it. Listen to the cry of the poor who are the disproportionate victims of the crises of our common home. Then we need to judge. We need to rediscover a theological vision of the natural world as good news. We need to recognize that the abuse of creation is ecological sin and acknowledge the human roots of the crises of our common home. Then we need to act. We need to develop an integral ecology as we are all interrelated and interdependent. See those words again. Every tradition talks about our interrelatedness and our interdependence. Learn a new way of dwelling in our common home and manage it more responsibly through a new economics and a new political culture. Educate toward ecological citizenship through a change of lifestyles. Embrace an ecological spirituality that leads to communion with all of God's creatures. And care for our common home by cultivating the ecological virtues of praise, gratitude, care, justice, work, sobriety, and humility. Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew is known as the Green Patriarch. And he said to commit a crime against the natural world is a sin. For human beings to cause species to become extinct and to destroy the biological diversity of God's creation. For human beings to degrade the integrity of the earth by causing changes in its climate, by stripping the earth of its natural forest, or by destroying its wetlands. For human beings to injure other human beings with disease by contaminating the earth's waters, its land, its air, and its life with poisonous substances. All of these are sins. It's a new notion of sin, how we take care of the earth. It's not a private thing, it's a social sin. The World Evangelical Alliance has a statement on creation care. They represent more than 600 million evangelical Christians. And they say, in Christ, the presence of the kingdom of God is marked not only by renewed fellowship with God, but also by renewed harmony and justice between people and the rest of the created world. The World Council of Churches says that nations and international agencies, we need to step outside your transient comfort zones to transform policies, take responsibility, and act against the unbridled consumption pattern that is destroying our planet. As people of faith and goodwill, let us unite across religious traditions and divides to nurture and protect creation for all living creatures today and for generations to come. Baha'i faith says that the grandeur and diversity of the natural world are purposeful reflections of the majesty and bounty of God. For Baha'is, there follows an implicit understanding that nature is to be respected and protected as a divine trust for which we are answerable. Baha'u'llah wrote, "The earth is but one country, and humankind its citizens." A statement from the Baha'i international community says, "Only a comprehensive vision of a global society, supported by universal values and principles, can inspire individuals to take responsibility for the long-term care and protection of the natural environment." So what is needed? A comprehensive vision of a global society supported by universal values and principles. For Baha'is, the goal of existence is to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. Such a civilization can only be built on an earth that can sustain itself. The Baha'i commitment to the environment is fundamental to our faith. At the heart of Baha'i is the conviction that humankind is a single people with a common destiny. And I have a picture below that I took in India of the Baha'i temple there. It's built as a lotus, and there is water flowing all around within it. It is one of the most beautiful structures I have ever seen. So as we look at just a small portion of the different faiths in the world, we see that there is so much more commonality among them than that which divides us. And so the points of agreement among the world's religions are the following. The natural world has value in itself and does not exist solely to serve human needs. There is a significant continuity of being between human and non-human living beings, even though humans do have a distinctive role. This continuity can be felt and experienced. Non-human living beings are morally significant in the eyes of God and or in the cosmic order. They have their own unique relations to God and their own places in the cosmic order. The dependence of human life on the natural world can and should be acknowledged in ritual and other expressions of appreciation and gratitude. Moral norms such as justice, compassion, and reciprocity apply both to human beings and to non-human beings. The well-being of humans and the well-being of non-humans are inseparably connected. There are legitimate and illegitimate uses of nature. Greed and destruction are condemned. Restraint and protection are commended. Human beings are obliged to be aware and responsible in living in harmony with the natural world and should follow the specific practices for this prescribed by their traditions. And now we come to why I named this Aroha. Aroha is a Maori term, and it says it includes in a person an all-encompassing quality of goodness expressed by love for people, land, birds, and animals, fish, and all living things. We are all called to Aroha, to recognize in each other and in the creation around us an all-encompassing quality of goodness expressed by love for people, land, birds, and animals, fish, and all living things. In order to feel Aroha, one must recognize that people are not the center of the universe and that all life is interconnected. Aroha is a way of being, not a way of doing. Sorry. Okay. And before I conclude with this tale, I would just like to say that I moved back to Cincinnati after 30 years of working in other places in the world and at the United Nations. And one of the things that I have come to truly treasure about this city is its emphasis on working together among different religious traditions. You have Mark, you have Equation, which sponsors the Festival of Faith. And we have Faith Communities Go Green, which we started about 3 years ago. And the goal, again, is to bring religious traditions together around environmental sustainability. And so I invite any and all of you to be a member of Equation, of Faith Communities Go Green, and to consider how you might work with other traditions than your own. In the presentation that I gave on Monday as part of the panel, I mentioned that from September 1st to October 4th is the Christian season of creation. It was actually started by Patriarch Demetrius a number of years ago, but has been accepted and adopted by all Christian traditions as a special time to honor creation. But I don't think that's just for Christians. I think that's for all of us. And I ended my other talk by saying, what if Cincinnati can be the first city to host a season of creation that includes all of our traditions? And I'd like to end with a Native American tale. Okay? A long time ago, before anybody can remember, people actually did live in harmony with each other. But gradually, they separated themselves from the oneness that they knew. And the elders of the tribe became greatly concerned because they knew that the Great Spirit had gifted them with the gift of harmony and had placed them in a land filled with all that they needed. But they looked around and found that the people were no longer honoring what God had given them. There was waste and destruction. And so they felt that it was important to safeguard what God had given them. So they decided that they would gather up all the wisdom and hide it until such a time as the people were ready for it. And so they did. Then they gathered in council and tried to decide where they would hide it. Someone said, I know a cave that has so many caverns, no one's ever been to the back. Perhaps we can hide it there. But another leader said, no, these people are sneaky and they go where they don't belong. And surely one of them will go and find it before it is time, before they are ready. Another said, I know a lake that's so deep, no one's ever found the bottom. Maybe we can put it there. And at first they thought they had their answer, but then another elder spoke up and said, no, these people like to fish, and surely one of them will hook it and bring it up before it is time. Now the elders were becoming very frustrated because they felt so keenly the importance of safeguarding the harmony and the gifts that God had given them, but they didn't know where to hide them until the eldest woman of the tribe spoke up. And she said, let's hide it inside of them. They'll never think to look there. And they all knew they had their answer. And I think that's the answer for us today as well. We keep looking outside as to what's wrong with the world. We need to look within as to what we have to offer, what we can contribute. We need to cherish each of our religious traditions. We're not in competition with each other. There's one God who loves every single one of us. But we also have to take into account that we are responsible for this creation. And so how can we work together to bring about the harmony we seek? You know, as we read from the Christian tradition, as we read from the Islamic tradition, from the Jewish tradition, we're looking at our world and we're seeing people of these traditions killing each other day by day. All of them. That's not what we're called to do. Nor are they living deeply out of their own traditions. So look within ourselves and then share with one another. So thank you very much. And if there are any questions, Joey will give them to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions here for you, CJ. Before I ask you the questions, though, Deb has asked if there will be a link to this video on another site besides Facebook, and I just wanted to let everybody know that it will be on Equation's website, as well as I believe Faith Communities Go Green will put it on their website too. So it'll be in a couple different locations that you can share. Um, in addition to that, before you all leave, I wanted to highlight that tomorrow we're going to end the festival with a peace walk, and so I just put something in the chat. You can check that out if you are interested in joining us. So we have two questions for you, CJ. Sister CJ, thanks so much for this amazing compilation of all of these world traditions. And this is a question from Steve. He says, Jesus once said, "Ye shall know them by their fruits," which are things important and common to people's lives. But was he, speaking of Jesus, just speaking about the quality of people's dates and figs? So if you know Steve, you know this is a little tongue in cheek, but yeah, go for it. Is he talking about just dates and figs, or
I
is there
don't
something
think
deeper
so.
there? Yeah.
I think he was talking about you'll know them by their fruits, and the fruits are how we cherish one another, how we work together. You know, as Christians, and I think every other faith tradition says the same thing, you will know them by the lives that they lead. And as the Dalai Lama said, if you're a good Muslim, if you're a good Catholic, if you're a good Methodist, if you're a good Jew, then we'll understand each other and we'll be able to work together.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Another from Steve here. Though the concepts you have presented are acknowledged worldwide and have been endorsed for eons, governments have been reluctant to support them. Do you feel that progress is being made to get governments to endorse these goals?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest problems facing us today. And I think it's very difficult when we look at the inequitable distribution of wealth, that obviously you can't have some countries that have everything and other countries that have nothing. Having just come from Africa, I'll just say that the Kibera slums there are 1.5 million people living in 1 square mile. And they're living in broken down huts. And if you read just like 3 weeks ago, there were tremendous flooding there. And so the little that they had is gone. We can't have a world living in harmony where a few people have everything and a lot of people have nothing. There are statistics that show that less than 100 people in the world have as much money as half the population of the world. We need to look at that. What does that mean? What do we need to do about it? And it's a difficult situation for governments as well. There are no easy answers for it. It means a change in our lifestyles. But again, it starts with each one of us. Our government responds to what we ask for. And so there just have to be enough of us asking for some changes.
Beautiful. So Mike would like you to comment a little bit on your hermeneutical understanding of Genesis 1:26 through 28. So famously, the word dominion is used, and many people interpret that to mean for humans to dominate the earth. What's an alternative or more correct reading of that word?
Well, it's a couple chapters later, still in Genesis, where it talks about stewardship. And that's what we're concentrating on today, is how do we look at not dominion over, but stewardship of? And both of those happen to be in Genesis, but we kind of jumped on the one and forgot the other. And I think there has to be a balance between the two.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, CJ. Here's the last question from Deb. Unless anybody else wants to jump in the chat, please feel free. She asks, you mentioned your hope that Cincinnati will become a place where all faiths work together in creation care. How can this happen? Can FCGG spearhead it?
I think it already is happening. That's what I'm excited to see. I think Equation started by, bringing different religious traditions together. I think FCGG is concentrating more on the environmental aspects of it. but working very closely. We are a collaboration between Equation and the Green Umbrella. And so I think that the more we want to work together, the more we will. And that's why I think I'd love to see the season of creation be for everybody in Cincinnati. What can we do during this season of creation from September 1st to October 4th? Can we talk to neighbors? Can we visit another church? Any Equation through Mighty Streams and the Sacred Connections does that. Sacred Connections puts out a list of different churches that are inviting us to come and visit them. So if you haven't visited another tradition, it's important to do so. And you see the spirit of the people in that tradition. And you realize that maybe you don't always understand the words. Every mass I went to in Kenya was in Swahili. I didn't understand a single word, but I knew we were praying together. Fred and Becca Desai, the Zoroastrian community, invited me to participate in a ceremony at their house. It was in Avesta, a language I do not understand, but it really didn't matter. Okay, we were gathered there to honor our dearly departed, all of us. And so I think the more we can go to each other's places of worship, invite others to come to our place of worship, the more we will make a difference in our community.
Thank you so much. So I thought, I mean, feel free to say no to this, but as you were speaking about your experience with Becca, I thought maybe I could ask you to leave us with a prayer or blessing. This is the final virtual programming piece of the festival week. Of course, we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. But could you leave us with some prayer or blessing from your tradition potentially?
Well, actually, I'll do one that's coming. I'm doing a series of photo reflections. I do these each season of creation. And this year I'm doing them on the Earth Charter because I think that's an important document for all of us. And this is a pledge of commitment to protect and heal God's creation. And it says, we have come to renew our covenant with God and with one another in Christ Jesus our Lord. We have come to help protect God's creation. We have come as followers of Jesus to commit ourselves anew to one another and to heal injustice and poverty. We have come to stand together against all threats to life. We have come to discover some new beauty every day in God's creation, the sunrise and sunset, birds, flowers, and trees, rainbows in the sky, the stars, the many forms of life in the forest. We have come to listen to the music of the universe, water flowing over rocks, the wind, trees bending in the wind, raindrops pattering the roof. We will remember always that God speaks to us through the beauty of creation, and we will try our best to answer God's call to reverence all that has been created. And so that is the Christian commitment to the season of creation, but I am quite sure that each tradition has something that they could offer as well.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, CJ, for your time and for your words, for your wisdom. And thank you to everybody who chose to be with us tonight. We know you could have spent your time in a lot of other places, and so we value your decision to be here with us tonight. And we hope that you will choose to be with us again tomorrow night at the Peace Walk. So I've put information in the chat for you all to know when and where to show up, and we hope to see you there. Thanks again, CJ, and thanks for everybody who showed up tonight.
Well, thank you.